Three, two, one, go.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Force podcast, the podcast from Puerto Rican friends coming together to do deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media. This is season 4, episode 14, and first of all, we would like to apologize that we haven't recently released anything. We've been kind of having a little bit of a struggle here trying to decide what to release now because we want to support the SAG-AFTRA WGA strike because we don't really want to break ticket lines, and so we've been trying to, right goose, trying to decide what's okay to say, not to say, what content to release. So in
Yeah.
respect to that, we're gonna talk a little bit about the strike, about a book that Goose read that he really
Yeah.
liked. And we are excited for Ahsoka. We can't really talk about it yet. Hopefully the strike be addressed by the time Ahsoka comes out. We don't know yet. But preparing for that, we wanted to touch on Ahsoka and what she represented in Rebels. What was where we kind of left her off. We're not doing a full Rebels rewatch. If you're into that, go check out our friends at Star Wars Explained. They are doing one. So if you're into that, and they're much better at this than we are, so enjoy that. We're just talking about the Ahsoka episode, so we're kind of doing a little mini series focusing on each season. Actually, I think with season 2 you might have to split because she's in season 2 a lot.
It's very interesting because I didn't remember how little and how much she's kind of like in the show, depending on which season you're on. So it's kind of fun to kind of look back and see all of that. I will, full disclosure, I have not rewatched. So I hope that you did, so that we can, in a way, be in an inverted situation from Clone Wars, where like now you're quote unquote the expert, and I'm just like the one that's saying, "Oh yeah, how about that?" Although I think for season 1, I think I'll be safe. But yeah, as you said, and we probably might have this disclaimer at the beginning of the episode, but it's never bad to repeat things. Like Nani was saying, we are 100% supportive of all the writers and actors in both guilds, the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes. It's important to know that this episode was recorded during those strikes, and that without the labor of the writers and actors that work on all of these series, we wouldn't have them.
Have anything.
So if you're willing and able, please support the writers and the actors currently on strike by either donating to the Entertainment Community Fund, which link is down in the description below, or if you cannot donate, which is totally fine, just make sure to raise awareness in any way that you can by either retweeting or reposting, because now Twitter is dead, I guess. Post to like make sure that the word gets out so that people don't get complacent, because when things get extended for vast periods of time, people get complacent and they get used to it
and forget,
and it becomes a thing where it's kind of gets normalized and it fades away from the public consciousness. So it's kind of important to raise awareness in any way that we can, which is one of the reasons why we've kind of decided to go on with the podcast in any sort of capacity, because it's one of those things that's kind of a double-edged sword. We were just talking about it before starting to record. If we're not putting out episodes, then we're contributing to radio silence in terms of.
And then if we talk about the shows too much, then maybe we're in a sense crossing the picket lines, and we don't want to either. So we're trying to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
It's important. Awareness is important, and we have to talk about it. And regardless of at what capacity we move forward with the podcast in terms of our discussions of the upcoming shows from all the struck companies, we will still be doing our disclaimers and making our point to have that like in the description with the links for donation for people that can donate. Keep talking about it so that no one sleeps on it. So we're trying to do our best. We might not get it right on the first try or the second try, but we will keep trying, and we are very cognizant that the strike is important, because without, again, like we said at the beginning, without these people, we have none of the things that we love. So no AI. AI is going to destroy everything. It's going to replace. It's like, did these people not watch Terminator?
I know.
Did they not watch like any of these movies? It's like, come on, man, you're gonna
Yeah.
replace humanity with robots?
Yep.
What is this?
I know.
So
I
it's
know.
kind of sad. It's kind of sad because
Kind
imagine
of
if we
horrifying, actually.
it is horrifying.
Yes.
All the things that I've read about the studios wanting to scan actors and take their their likenesses in
Likeness.
perpetuity to use in however ways they want, with only paying them like minimum SAG after rates for just one day. And then
It's
it's
insane.
horrifying, horrifying.
Yeah.
So we have to fight back because what will the future of
Well, yeah.
of art
If that's
be if we
well,
don't
and
have
if that
people
just starts
doing
with
it?
entertainment, then they can what scan you randomly on the street, take your likeness.
No,
Just take it
it's
to an
yeah,
extreme. Yeah.
it's wild because the
Yeah.
people that want to do that are obviously the the CEOs and people in power in in these corporations, and are the people that don't create anything. They're not the ones that make art, that go through these human experiences to translate them into stories that we can connect with. They're not doing
They just want
anything.
to cut costs.
They
That's it.
want to cut costs by
Mhm.
replacing the people that actually create beautiful things with soulless things for just money. It's what's the point at that point? It's like we're not doing what we do to talk about the shows we love because it's just badass. It's like no, it's because they make us feel something, because we connect with it, because it's telling us stories
Yeah.
about the things that we live through. And I think that's the important things of storytelling, art, media, movies, TV shows. They're an extremely powerful medium, which is why it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, because people connect with these stories, and we have to defend it. So we're trying to
Agreed.
do our part. We might disagree with like how we're moving forward with doing it, but we're trying to do it in the
We'll
best
try to
way
figure it
that we
out
can.
and
So keep keep strong, everyone. Like in the picket lines, it's important, and we see you, we support you, and we're there with you in spirit, and we're trying, man. And hopefully everyone that is listening does their part too, if they can.
they can. Okay, so actual content. What book did you read recently? Who's that you were telling me that you really, really enjoyed?
I think it's a book you would like, actually. I mean, maybe I don't want to project too much on what you would like,
Right, right.
but you have a diverse palette of books
Yes.
that you enjoy. I know you like a lot of YA. Which speaking of, the High Republic YA books, I think
Are really good. Yeah.
kick some serious ass, and I think
Yeah.
you get some amusement out of them, if not pure joy, at least.
Okay.
But this one is the most current publishing from uh, Lucasfilm. Well, not Lucas. Well, yeah, Lucasfilm in a way, but Del Rey Publishing, which is Delilah Dawson's Inquisitor: Rise of the Red Blade. This is the Comic Con convention exclusive uh,
Mm,
cover, which FYI, I did not attend Comic Con San Diego because I've been traveling too much this year and I don't have money to travel. So I have to
budgets.
give a massive kudos and thank you to This That Writes. If you don't follow him on Instagram threads, please make sure to follow him. He has really good content. Really, he reads a lot more than I do, so you will get a lot more book content than I can ever dream to deliver. But he was very, very kind to pick me up a copy at Comic Con and send it to me, because when I saw this cover, I'm just like,
I
I
need it.
need it immediately because it's just
It's
beautiful.
gorgeous.
It's
Yep.
beautiful. But it's written by Delilah Dawson, who, if you know or don't know, I'll let you know now, is a previous Star Wars author. She's written Phasma, a couple of stories for the From a Certain Point of View books for the 40th anniversary of the original trilogy. Really great author. I've read some of her non-Star Wars books. They're really, really good. And this one was no exception. It was a book that I was a little on the fence about reading because I wasn't familiar with the character that it starred.
Right.
It wasn't. I mean, I know since it's about Inquisitors that it's during the original trilogy or the early parts of the
The
episode four,
rebellion.
right between
Mhm.
3 and 4, kind of the same time frame as Rebels, I guess. So since I wasn't sure, I'm just like, maybe I'll skip this one. But it started getting a lot of praise. Lots of the people that get the ARCs, the advanced readers copies, which Del Rey you haven't put us on that list.
You keep
Put
doing
us,
that and you haven't gotten any.
you know, I don't, I don't want to feel entitled, but it's just like, come on, man. I don't. We're trying to avoid talking about struck companies, but there's,
Mm,
but we get invited sometimes. Like some things, it'd be nice to get a book once in a while. Not that I would read it in time to put reviews out by the time they want it, because I read slow AF. But you know, it's nice. It would be
it's
nice.
courtesy.
I would feel very, it would brighten up my day, and I kind of need that lately. But anyway, the book was great. It's about this Jedi called Iskat Akaris, which is very Game of Thrones kind of name actually. Like
Right.
when I
Yeah,
read the
it does.
Akaris, I'm like, oh, it's kind of Drakaris, interesting. But really cool. Obviously, it's a female led book, so it's really interesting to see like how Delilah kind of framed the book through the woman's perspective and
Yeah.
women's struggle in a male powered dominated industry society, whatever you want to call it, through the Jedi Temple and war and all these things. So it was really great to see how Star Wars and Delilah in this book specifically kind of managed that marriage, right, between kind of real world things that everyone, well, not everyone, because I don't, but like women struggle with, and then translate that into the Star Wars world without having to be. I mean, I don't want to say it's obvious because it is obvious because it's a woman struggling, but kind of not, be
Slapping you in the face with it.
exactly. It's a way that melds into the story naturally and doesn't like take you out of it because I'm like, oh, or kind of pushing an agenda
Yeah.
and it's kind of forced
Mhm.
into the story. It's like no, it's very natural into the story, so it fits really well. And I think the whole story it's talked about brilliantly. And I think one of the great things about the book is that it starts during the prequel trilogy, more or less like during Attack of the Clones, because we get to see her as a Jedi Padawan right before the Battle of Geonosis and everything that she
Okay.
has to go through from there, and how she feels kind of disenfranchised with the Order and her
Yeah.
master. She doesn't feel a connection with, and she has all these feelings inside that she wants to kind of talk about, and the Jedi Order kind of
Doesn't let
is
her. Yep.
doesn't let her, as ignoring her, kind of gaslights her. Well, not kind of, they don't 100% gaslight her,
Well, no feelings.
and no feelings.
Yep.
So there's
They
I don't
need
want to
art
go. I
therapy,
don't
all of them.
every single one, but I don't think there's psychiatrists or psychologists in the galaxy, as we talked before, even though they're desperately needed. But yeah, so we kind of see that journey from her being in the Jedi Order, and it's not a spoiler to say she turns into an Inquisitor because it's right there in the title of the book, and
Right.
and she's in the cover,
Mhm.
so you kind of know that she's an Inquisitor. So let's see how that transformation. But then the flip side of seeing, oh, I gave into the dark side. I'm going into this dark realm because it's promised to me like all these things that I've been searching for that were
Right.
denied from me from the light. But then kind of see how it's the same, if not worse, because it's not about what like a societal structure or whatever isn't giving you. It's about what you seek for yourself, type of thing. So very good. It's one of those books that feels very small because it's about one character and
Right.
their development, but also very big because she goes through like a lot of different galactic events, right? From the
Right.
Battle of Geonosis to a lot of different skirmishes and different planets. So it's simultaneously very small in terms of like the intent of the
Mhm.
character development and her story, but wide in terms of its setting within the Star Wars galaxy. I'm not gonna go into spoilers
Yeah.
with what happens at the end, but it's something that I just learned thanks to our friend Sean Room that apparently the end had been shown like in a comic book before, the Darth Vader comic books by Charles Soule. They had shown
We're bad
the
at comic books.
what the
So
ending of this book was. So if you've read those books, I mean comic books, then you know what happens here. But it was gut without me having read those comics, the end had me like,
gut
holy
wrenching.
shit. It was gut wrenching. So like I said before, I read very slow, and this book I absolutely like devoured it and like read it very quickly. So do yourselves a favor, if you're into reading, which you should, get yourself a copy and thank me later. So this wasn't meant to be like a whole review podcast episode, but since now you
You got
opened the door,
excited.
I kind of had to.
Well, as
So
soon as we started
there you go.
talking before this, we hadn't talked in a while. It's true because of
Yeah,
life, and you said you read this book that you love so much, so we had
yeah,
to talk
yeah.
about it. I mean, it's actual content that we can talk about right now, and it's always good to bring attention to some of the lesser known properties, especially the books. Especially considering that the books tend to go a little bit crazier and there's like
Oh
more
yeah.
diverse storylines. So, the more attention the books get, the more possibility of people getting into them, and then maybe those stories get made in some other format. So
Hmm.
it's always good to talk as much Star Wars as we can. I know
Yeah.
we've been a little bit lax on the comics and everything, but people that are really into the comics say that there's amazing storylines. So
But
there's a good amount, really really good amount of Star Wars stuff to get into.
it's a lot. Publishing is definitely doing
Yeah,
the heavy lifting for Star Wars,
yeah,
between the books and the comic books and the High Republic,
true.
and I mean even the video games, because Star Wars Jedi Survivor
Yeah,
was really really good. Not just game, but story. And one of the great stories that I appreciated, because it's starting to do the things that we kind of like from interconnected media like this, which is jump from one medium to another, and then Survivor has lots of tie-ins to the High Republic. So it's very nice to kind of
yeah,
start seeing things cross over into different mediums. So that's why I'm excited for Acolyte, because we're going to see High Republic stuff there. So
yeah.
yeah, read, read.
Agreed.
Get the Audible if you don't want to read. Get the
Yep,
Audible.
yep.
Read it sonically. I don't know if that's considered reading, but at least you got the book somehow into your brain. So do that. Do that. But anyway, we're not here to discuss Inquisitor Rise of the Red Blade, even though we've spent a lot of time talking about it. We're here to talk about Rebels, but not as a recap. This is not a recap channel. This is a discussion channel, and we're here to discuss Rebel season 1 in terms of Ahsoka's
Ahsoka.
appearance.
Mhm.
However, I don't think we can like talk about Ahsoka's appearance without talking a little bit about Rebels and the context of the show, because we haven't really talked about Rebels in the past. We did talk about remembering Rebels a little bit. We have talked a little bit about the world between worlds, but we've never kind of dove in and be like, hey,
And we talked about some of the characters because we talked a lot about Hera and stuff about like the mothers of Star Wars. And I think we did an episode about all the crazy sentient beasts that we get in
right,
Rebels,
right, right,
which
right.
because Ezra has this extra ability that he can communicate with all
That
the
was a good episode title. I
yeah,
must say it was
yeah,
Beauty in the
the
Beasts.
beasts.
I
Yep,
was like, oh damn, that's a good one.
yep.
That's a good one. Good job,
There's
us.
a lot of really good stuff in Rebels, but yeah, we kind of want to keep it about Ahsoka. And aside from the family of Ahsoka, the Ghost and the Phantom in Rebels, do you want to mention a little bit how we ended up with Ahsoka at the end of the Clone Wars, or do you just want to go straight into Rebels?
Well, it's kind of it's well, I don't want to say confusing. It's not confusing. It's more that it's convoluted. Might be like the more appropriate term, because when Rebel starts,
Yeah,
Clone
season
Wars,
7 hasn't come out
right?
yet. Yep.
Clone Wars had been canceled. We just
Mhm.
had season 6. We got the lost episodes. So in a way, we didn't really know what had happened to
To
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka.
I
Hmm.
think, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you've seen Clone Wars a little more recent than I have.
Yeah,
Last we know about Ahsoka, she left the temple. Like
yeah,
she gave Anakin her like Padawan
yep,
beads, and she
yeah.
walks away. So that's kind of the last thing that we knew about her
And
up
I don't
until that
actually
point.
remember if the book came out before season 7 of Clone
Yes.
Wars.
Oh, well, oh, it came out way
So
before.
yeah,
That's why
yeah,
people were a little upset with season 7, because like, oh, they Filoni's retconning things. But people will always complain about something, I
of course.
guess. Pero refresh my memory. You obviously were very anti Clone Wars before.
I wasn't anti Clone Wars. I just
You
haven't.
were anti Clone Wars. You were anti Clone
I
Wars.
just could not get into it.
You
Yeah.
were like, the animation sucks. So you're like, you were non grata. Like Clone Wars is like a series non grata for you, until we forced it upon you,
Yeah,
with your
when
consent,
the
of course, with this
yeah.
podcast. But
Mhm.
with Rebels, refresh my memory on what was your journey with Rebels. Did you watch it
I
before Clone Wars? You watch it after Clone Wars? What
okay.
was your expectation level? All that good stuff.
Okay. So by the time we started the podcast, everything was out.
Mhm.
All of Clone Wars and all of Rebels. Bando had been a huge fan of the Clone Wars, and again, I was kind of anti it. And then once season 7 came out, that everybody fell in love with it. He's like, now you have to watch it. Season 7's out. Have to watch it. I was like, I don't care. Fine. I remember we saw a clip of, I think it was the last season of Rebels when we went to Star Wars Celebration
Yes.
Orlando, and I really like the animation in Rebels. So I kept in my mind like I actually want to watch that, and but I never did. And then we decided to do the podcast, so I started with Clone Wars. I did all Clone Wars all the way through, and then I started with Rebels. And with Rebels, I got into it right away. I was
Interesting.
hooked
Even
from
especially
the
the first
beginning.
season. Hmm.
Yep, I got hooked on Rebels right away. I remembered, and then I wasn't shocked that obviously spoilers. Rebels has been out for years. Sorry. Uh, that Fulcrum,
Mhm.
the shocker at the end of the season that it's actually Ahsoka, which they actually do an amazing build up to it. But I had read the book and she becomes Fulcrum at the end of the book.
So it wasn't a surprise for you.
So it wasn't a surprise for me. I was like, it's gonna be Ahsoka. And Wally over here, like, Posbando, what are you doing? Are you spoiling shit for me? I was like, well, sometimes it's the title. I think there's other people that have had the title
Like
Fulcrum, right?
Cassian.
So
Cassian Andor was a
right.
fulcrum. Yep.
Yeah. So I was like, it doesn't necessarily have to be. And they do a really good job of masking the voice. And it's always very cowed. You don't see any
Hmm.
of her face until literally the reveal at the end of the season. So I was having doubts myself. It was actually going to be her. It was
Hmm.
still really exciting to find out that it was Ahsoka, that we're going to get Ahsoka again. And then in season 2, which we're going to talk about later in another episode because she's huge in season 2, to see her having such an active role is amazing.
Hmm. I think
So good.
it's interesting because in rewatching and going back
Mhm.
and seeing some of the clip, because again, like I haven't rewatched
The whole
Rebels,
thing, yeah.
haven't rewatched
Mhm.
Rebels for this, which sorry, but
We
you look
watch
at the
season
clips and you
2
see
when we
some
talk about
things.
it.
I need to for
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
because it's good. It's good.
It's
Even
good.
though I said it before and I'll say it again, I was the opposite of
Yeah.
you in
You like the
regards to
animation in
the
Clone Wars way, but
exactly.
I know.
I love the animation in Clone Wars, well, especially towards like the
Yeah.
latter half, because obviously when it starts in season one,
Kind of very clunky.
it's
Yeah.
messed up.
Yeah.
But it's the genesis of how it ended up was there, and now we have in the Bad Batch like this beautiful
Oh yeah.
animation that started with Clone Wars. So like I'm very enamored with that
Yeah.
particular style. So I wasn't too much of a fan with the spaghetti limbs of Rebels. It was too, this is gonna sound like a contradictory statement, but to me, it was too cartoony, even though Clone Wars is also very cartoony.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
style
And
didn't
what you
resonate
yeah.
with.
Which what you call Reveille, I think it's like more flowy instead of like more boxy. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it does. I mean, Rebels does have like some beautiful scenes when like
Oh yeah.
uh, that like our our art pieces, which is why I got the art of Star Wars Rebels. I have it somewhere in there because
Mhm.
there's some really great artistic qualities to the show. But in terms
Yeah.
of like the
Like
animation
the
of
general
characters,
aesthetics of what you like and just
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I came into the show with the handicap of being like, ugh,
Mhm.
I don't, it doesn't look like I want it to look. I
Yeah.
want it to look like Clone Wars. So, but you have to get over yourself sometimes because
Yeah.
the store, the art shouldn't trump the animation style shouldn't
Mhm.
trump the art of the storytelling.
Mhm.
And Rebels is one of the best Star Wars out there. I will admit that it took me a while to get onto the story
Mhm.
bandwagon of Rebels because I think which is kind of the same thing that happened with Clone Wars. It starts out a little on the kids side, which is unfair to say because it's a kids show.
It's yep.
But I think it's Ezra's fault. Ezra sucks at the beginning. I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
kudos,
Ezra
but
was super
kudos.
annoying at the beginning, but you get
But he's
to
supposed to be
enjoy.
though. But he's
I
supposed
know
to be.
he's a kid that grew up by himself in this like overtaken planet, and I do like that first season. Like you get the idea that the rebellion is starting, that the empire has completely taken over, and you have these random cells of rebels. There's a very much Andor quality,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Except Andor obviously is very much adult and kind of grim, and this one, yeah, it looks more kiddie, but it's still grim. Like Ezra lost his parents. He's been by himself in Lothal for like 7 or 8 years,
Mhm.
and somehow gets thrown into like this family that's like a rebel cell, but nobody really knows what's going on in the grand scheme of things. And that's when we start to get like these messages from Fulcrum. And
Mhm.
the entire time, like Sabine doesn't trust. She's like, why are we being sent on these missions? Every time we get sent on one of these missions, something goes wrong. Are you sure it's not like the bad guys leading us around? Which was, one of the bad things about keeping everything secret. It's good
Mhm.
because you don't want people to tattle on the entire operation, but at the same time, the individual cells don't know what's going on, which is a lot of what we see in Andor.
Yeah.
That it's like, and why I feel like so many of these earlier rebels got disillusioned with the
Mhm. Mhm.
movement because they didn't know what was going on in the grand scheme of things. So you think, what am I risking my life for?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Which is so good, especially now in this post Andor world, right?
Yeah.
Because we see exactly what you're talking about in Rebels, obviously, and it
Mhm.
works so good there. But then now with Andor, we get like so much more context to that that I think
Right.
elevates Rebels even more because that
Right.
scene between Stellan Skarsgård and Forrest Whitaker, right, where they're in the cave, Saw Gerrera, and I forgot
Yeah.
Stellan Skarsgård's character's name. I'm sorry. Hey, it's been a couple
It's been
weeks,
a while.
guys. It's been a while. Sorry.
We're sorry.
Uh, but when those two characters like are talking, and Saw Gerrera starts, and Stellan saying like, "Hey, we need to get everyone together," and he's like, "Oh, the partisan alliance, the other guys, like all these, the whatever front," and it starts like listing all the little rebel factions that are separate, doing their own thing. It really strengthens what Rebels was doing by kind of showing that everyone isn't really in this unified rebellion like we see at the end of Return of the Jedi. It's
Yeah.
really kind of
Yeah.
everyone's alone basically.
Yeah.
So Rebels was kind of genius in that sense.
Luthen.
Luthen Rail, thank you. Oh my god, my mind is a sunless place, guys. Oh my god, Luthen Rail, thank you. Holy crap, one of my favorite monologues, and I forgot the name of the character.
It's fine.
But I think that's a great thing about Rebels, and that's why I appreciate that it ended when it did because it was able to kind of tell a very tight narrative and bringing Ahsoka in, especially when it did help kind of the show kind of springboard into what it became in
Yeah.
seasons 2, 3, and 4 because it's like this isolated community that are figuring out how to be a family together and fight the Empire in an isolated way, and then through this one character that kind of springboard everything to
Yeah.
open it up to the greater galactic conflict is chef's kiss. And the fact that it's Ahsoka is beautiful. And it's very
Yeah.
analogous, I think, to what happened in Mando season 2 with specifically Bo Katan. I mean, I know Ahsoka kind of does a similar thing, but I
Yeah.
think Bo Katan is like that Ahsoka. Like Ahsoka is to Rebels, what Bo Katan is to the Mandalorian. Or when Mando meets Bo Katan, that's when the series
Yeah.
stops being this show about like this family unit
Mhm.
with Mando and
Yeah.
Grogu, and then becomes
Mhm.
like this bigger conflict with the Mandos in the Empire. And the same thing with Rebels. Once Ahsoka comes in the picture, it's like, oh, we opening the floodgates, and it's kind of an obvious character to do that with. If you kind of think about it
But
in
you wouldn't
retrospect.
expect it necessarily
No, no.
because coming from the Clone Wars, you see her story so tied to Anakin
Hmm.
that after that end of the Clone Wars, that's like she completely is she's gone. She leaves her lightsabers and everything,
Hmm.
and um, Darth Vader at this point just finds that lightsaber in the snow and that destroyed Star Destroyer, and probably just assumes that Ahsoka died. Which I'm pretty sure he thought for a long time that
Hmm.
Ahsoka
Hmm.
died.
Well, we
And
don't
then
know. We didn't know that starting
yeah,
Rebels, but now with
so
context, we do.
yeah. So you're just like you end there without knowing if Ahsoka even really survived or if she wanted to like leave completely, which I knew because I read the book. By the way, the book is great. So if you haven't read the book, it ties a lot of the of everything together, like what happens after Order 66 for her. Um, so you would not necessarily think that she would be appropriate for a character here, which
Hmm.
obviously she is, but you wouldn't necessarily put her there because you're like, okay, Anakin doesn't is not there anymore. Now it's Darth Vader. Like we don't really need Ahsoka anymore as a jump start, and because we hadn't heard about her character in other series that happened later on, I wouldn't necessarily think about her, but
Hmm.
she would be perfect for it. Like possibly dead apprentice who found her way towards balance because more
Hmm.
than
Hmm.
any other Jedi so far had found that balance between what is the dark side, what is the light side, why does it have to be one extreme or the other? And they do a really good job of exploring that through Rebels with Ahsoka.
Hmm.
So we'll get to that once we get to where we last see Ahsoka towards the end and why I really hope we get that version of Ahsoka somehow through the
Hmm.
series.
Hmm. Hmm.
But they did an amazing job of implementing her, who was a huge character in the animated series. But and here's where I think they succeed better than they did in Mandalorian. That
Oh,
even though you
yeah.
introduce this character that's so huge,
Yeah.
it's still about the Ghost family.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, she adds to the story instead of detracting from the other characters. She's like this addition to.
She's a support. Yes, she's a supporting character,
Yeah,
despite her being in season two
a
fairly
lot.
frequently.
Yeah.
She's always there to support the narrative of the ghost instead of kind
Mhm.
of supplanting it, which I think could have been something tempting for Filoni to do because we know that Ahsoka is
Loves
Filoni's
Ahsoka.
baby.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
he could have easily been like, okay, now this is the Ahsoka show and she's leading the ghost. And everyone could have taken a backseat to her. But
Yeah.
I kudos to the strength of the show for showing that restraint and being like, no, this is not her story. This is their story, and she
Mhm.
is there to supplement it. So
Yeah.
kudos. But I do want to say one thing because it always makes me feel like an idiot every time I kind of see the clues that it was supposed to be Ahsoka, and it's always the fulcrum symbol. The fulcrum
Oh, okay.
symbol should have been like the calling card of being like, "Oh yeah, that's Ahsoka."
That's
Because after she shows up, I'm like, "Fuck!" The fulcrum symbol is her face,
Mhm.
like her head,
Mhm.
uh, whatever pattern, however you call it,
Yeah, that they
on her
painted
face.
on the stormtroopers. That
Yep,
not stormtroopers. Sorry, the
the clone troopers. It says
yeah,
the thing with
stormtroopers.
the
Yep.
two dots. I'm just like,
Mhm.
"Oh, that's." How did I not pick that up? It's so up. Like once you see it, you can't unsee it
Yeah, you
anymore.
can't unsee it. Yeah.
So I was like, "Good job, Filoni, for putting something that's very obvious and not making me see it."
Especially somebody
And
that
kudos to you nerds who did see it. I'm sure
yeah,
there's somebody
kudos,
being like,
kudos.
"Oh yeah, I will.
I saw
I
it.
knew."
Yeah.
Well, good for you. I have more childlike wonder.
Well,
Okay.
and especially a character that again was so loved by Filoni as the fulcrum in season one. It's a very suspicious character. They
Hmm.
really are. I'm all there with Sabine. That every single time they sent them on a mission, something went wrong, and every time it says, "Can I meet this person? Does this person even exist?" And you I mean, she's mentioned this fulcrum a couple times, and a couple times it's just a voiceover, and then it's only at the end that we get like the hologram.
Hmm.
Still completely hooded, but even a hologram, at least we know it's an actual person. Because it's there's a lot of trust issues with the ghosts at first because they didn't, all know each other. They didn't know all their baggage,
Hmm. Hmm.
and especially with the character of Sabine, who started off, at the Academy of the Empire,
Hmm.
who followed orders without thinking about it because good soldiers follow
Good
stormtroopers,
soldiers follow
follow
orders.
orders, even without the chip. That kept being on their motto, and then
Hmm.
now being with the ghost and saying, "Oh, good soldiers follow orders," like because I can't tell you what's going on, but trust me.
Hmm.
And it's this how you navigate the trust issues, the secrecy, and everything that is so fantastic about it. And that's just season one.
Yeah.
And then when finally they go against Fulcrum's orders, because after Kanan gets taken by the Empire, they're like, can't sacrifice all of you guys just for Kanan. You have to let it go, let it be. And then Ezra goes against orders, decides
Which
to
is
go
a
after.
surprising thing for Ahsoka to say, because Ahsoka
Yeah,
would be one of the
yeah.
first people to be like, "No, no, no, we gotta rescue like
Which
a
goes
person that
to
I care about."
but it still goes to show how fragile the beginning of the rebellion was.
Mm.
That you didn't really know where anything was going and how easily allegiances could fall because
Yeah.
because we see that in Andor as well with
Luthen.
all the characters.
I
Yeah,
was like, I don't know.
yeah, with Luthen and Mon Mothma. who, Mon Mothma is a character that we never really thought would be sketchy.
Well,
But
she's not a soldier. Like, let's cut. A lot of people call Mon Mothma the Nancy Pelosi of space, and I think that's very unfair. I
no, I
think
think that's unfair.
it's
But I'm just saying
unfair.
that people,
She's figuring it out.
yeah, that people, especially when alliances are tenuous and you don't know where things are going, and everything hangs on a balance, like the entire galaxy hangs on this thin thread.
Hmm.
So it's unsurprising then that Ahsoka would also have been on this thin thread of, if I do these, I compromise to this. This is what happens. And when they, save Kanan, and that's when they finally get to realize that there is a rebellion, that they
Hmm.
have rebels come in to save them, other ships, other cells, and then the first person you see is the hologram of Bail Organa.
My boy Jimmy. I mean,
Perfection.
it's not Jimmy Smith, but but
Yeah,
Jimmy Smith is the spirit that carries that character.
yeah.
So Puerto Rico
And
in the house always.
always, always. But then the surprise were the other characters, like where we were kind of doing this because we believe in this family and we believed you, Hera, but we didn't really believe the rebellion existed. And oh shit, it does. And then Ahsoka comes down the stairs. It's like,
Hmm.
oh shit. It's like, I'm not Fulcrum. My name is Ahsoka Tano. You inspired everybody. We were trying to keep utmost secrecy, but we cannot let hope die. Now it's like, now we have to move forward. It's the stage has
It's
changed.
good. It's good. I
It's
mean, if
good.
there's a way to like end
Mhm.
a season, that's the way to do it. It's like, hey, here's this main character that you guys loved from this other show that you have
I
no
mean,
idea what's happened to her, and now here she is. Boom, cut the credits. Kudos, kudos, Filoni. Kudos.
well,
However,
actually, there's a scene of Darth Vader actually being brought back. That's
yeah,
adding
but
but
that's also
which
like
is
you close with Vader and says, "Oh shit!" Like
oh yeah,
Anakin as Vader is back and
mhm,
Ahsoka's back. Are they gonna?
yeah.
Is there gonna be like a meeting? Which obviously we know there is eventually, but I mean, that's as far as endings go. I mean, not
Oh
end,
yeah,
like, season finales go. That
yeah,
was solid because then you're like, oh, this show is in a completely different ballpark now from
yeah.
how it started. We started like as this kids show, and I use that
Mhm,
cautiously of
yeah,
Ezra being kind of a idiot,
yeah.
being a
And kind of
kid.
episodes of the week, but we're still like mostly concentrated just on Lothal and
To yeah,
oh shit, Ahsoka, Bail Organa. The rebellion is beginning.
to this is something completely different, something that
Mhm,
became and still is very very special. I mean, the testament to how special the show is the upcoming series, right, where we get to see these characters not just continue their stories but transcend now from animation into live action, which some people are upset by because they're like, oh, well, we should continue those stories in animation because live action isn't more important than animation, which is a
mhm.
point that I do understand. However, there's also the point that more people
Watch live action.
find find live action more accessible to these stories, not just in Star Wars, but in general. So it's I think a big deal to have like one of like all of these characters jump into live action so that more people can come back and see them and appreciate them and then be able to be like, oh, there's more stories about these characters that are really really cool.
Well, yeah.
Let's go watch those stories now. So
Well,
it only
especially
elevates
considering,
Rebels.
well, yeah, and honestly, considering that Ahsoka is this character that Filoni was in love with for so long, there's a million different directions that the show could have gone. And knowing that we're getting Hera, Sabine, Ezra, Ron, all these characters, and to like continue the story of Rebels,
And Purgles. Don't forget
exciting.
the Purgles.
And Purgles. God, if we get, oh yeah, we got Purgles.
Oh no, we're getting. Then you not watch the
Yeah, we're
trailer.
getting Purgles. Yeah,
We're
yeah,
getting
yeah. I
Purgles. We
forgot that
already
for a
saw
second.
them.
It's been a while.
We saw them in Mando season 3. Now we saw them
Yeah.
in the trailer. Which it's interesting. Because I remember when I saw Purgles for the first time in Rebels, I'm just like, this is kind of stupid. But at the end, when Ezra calls them and the Bendu's going batshit insane
Yep.
and all the weird force stuff is happening, I'm just like,
Yep.
okay, Purgles are cool.
Okay.
Never mind. Purgles are cool. that's one of the things that I really like about that I really like about Star Wars that I don't understand like why some nerds aren't able to get over themselves about is that ability to even though something might be presented to me and I think at first it's dumb, like I'm just
Yeah,
like, okay, well, let's see. And then eventually
it
Star Wars
grows
is
on
like,
you.
okay, here you
Yeah,
go. And then
yeah,
this is why you're wrong about this being stupid,
because
because
they're badass.
actually it's awesome. So thank you, Rebels, for doing a lot of that because obviously I started the beginning of that show not being particularly invested because I was watching it when it came out. It was on Disney Channel, whatever. I was watching. I don't have
Mhm.
cable, so I was watching it on Disney XD, which is the app on Apple TV. So I would just
Yeah,
watch it when it would be on the app. So I would watch it when it came out. So I was there since the beginning of Rebels. So I kind of grew with it,
right.
considering that at the beginning I'm just like, oh, well, I'm not sure, guys, I'm not sure. But eventually the show grew into something that kicked a lot of ass, and I was just watching a Star Wars Explains video on everything you need to know about Lothal, which if you haven't checked it out, check it out because Alex and Molly do a wonderful job at recapping things and giving you all the information you need before diving into new or existing shows. And it was kind of talking about the Loth Wolves, which we'll talk about when we talk about
Mhm.
season 3 or 4, whichever. I forgot. I probably 4, I think,
I
because
think
that's
it's 4.
when
Yeah,
I think that's when Kanan bites the
Kanan.
dust.
Oh God.
Uh,
Mhm.
and they were showing like how weird the Loth Wolves are because they can transcend the Force and go into like
Yeah,
all these weird stuff. And I'm like, damn, like Rebels was weird, but
yeah,
weird
and
in an awesome
great.
way.
Yeah,
The type of stuff that I want to see in Star Wars. This is one of the reasons I'm
yeah.
excited for both shows that are coming out, Acolyte and Ahsoka, showing us stuff that we
Bigger
haven't
shit.
seen before. It's just, it's just a shame that we can't talk about those shows without, the
I know.
the baggage that we now have thinking about how a lot of these writers and actors have been taken
Mhm.
advantage of, especially by
Yeah.
that corporation
Yep.
that owns them. Because if you've read the news about things that, well, let's just call them out, that Disney does, it's pretty harrowing. Like the one thing I was reading about now was one of the things that they do on the Disney Channel is shows once I think it's for writers, but a writer in the first couple of seasons of a show doesn't get paid like a full rate. They get paid like a X amount rate, and then like after a certain season, I think
It's
it's the
like a
third,
success or something.
something like that. It's just like once the show starts like the third or the fourth season, that's when they get paid like the full like their full amount. Something like that. Obviously, it's a little more complicated than how I just
Right,
explained it
but
because I'm not good at explaining things. So look it up
Mhm.
yourself, please. Don't trust me. Look it up for yourself, please. But the way that Disney got around that to like get out of paying writers what they deserve is they would rebrand the show, basically cancel it, but then continue it with a new name. So that's technically a new show. So you're not continuing on the same show. You're continuing on a new show, even though it's technically the same show, just with a new name. And that way they wouldn't have to pay them full rates. So
check it
it's
out.
it's very, very scummy what all of these studios do to actors and writers to
Yeah,
not pay them
make an extra buck.
a living wage when
Mhm.
everything that they would need to do to pay them what they deserve, actually not even what they deserve, to pay them the bare minimum is less than a percent of all the grosses that these studios are making. So it's disgusting, and it's not just the entertainment industry that does this. Like all industries are doing this. We're living in like fucked up, and I try to avoid cursing as much as possible, but this deserves it. This is a
Yeah,
fucked up times where corporations and the government just do not care about working class and low income people, poor people, and just take advantage of them. And like in a way where like before, I feel like they would be embarrassed about it and they would try to like hide their tracks and be like, "Oh, we're taking advantage of you, but we want to like not
on the down
uh,
low.
the DL." Now it's just like I don't. Now it's
I
just
don't
like
care.
I don't
Yeah,
care. I'm doing it, and whatever. What are you gonna do? Cancel your subscriptions and not watch anything? It's very it's it's very dark and sad, honestly, to see
Yeah.
like what we're doing. Well, sorry that I kind of took this from Ahsoka into that realm, but
Darkness.
we kind of have to. We can't forget
I know.
the shadow, right, that looms over all of these shows now, because it's we can't just cover our eyes and pretend that
This isn't happening.
this doesn't exist.
Mhm.
So anyway, sorry. Well, actually, no, I'm not sorry.
No, and that's what we started with.
Think about
Same
it.
for Circle.
Think about it. And the circles are important. Everything is cyclical, and I think that these strikes, I'm very, very hopeful. I have all the faith possible, even though I don't believe in faith. I believe in action. But I think that it's gonna come out. There's gonna be a victory for the actors and the writers, because it's not the first time that this has happened. There's been
Yeah,
like other psych. It happens every time. There's
yeah.
like a new way to consume all these shows. There's always some fuckery that these studios want to do to take advantage of it, and they always had to kind of pull back and give people what they're due.
So,
So hopefully it's sooner rather than later, but I do think that the that victory
yeah.
is achievable.
I think with that, we're done. Victory.
I hope. I mean, I hope that was that was. I think that was a good note to be done.
Mhm.
Hopefully I will if I ever decide to re-listen to this, hopefully that sounded good and not dumb. So at least make some people think about something. You're quiet, so I'm gonna take that as a no, but don't confirm it. Don't confirm it.
It's good. I'm just tired.
I'm
I
tired
have
too,
job
man. I'm
tomorrow.
tired. Yeah, we're releasing this on Wednesday. We're recording it on Tuesday because we were
Yeah,
supposed to do it Sunday, then we did, and we were supposed to do
and
it
life happens.
yesterday, and we were tired. But we're doing this for you. We're doing it. We're doing it. But anyway, Nani,
So
take
with
over.
that, we are Triad of the Force. We are going to continue talking about the seasons of Rebels, what Ahsoka meant to them, and leading up to how we end with her in Rebels. So please stay tuned to that. Let us know if you're enjoying this. If you enjoyed Rebels to begin with, if you're interested in watching it now, maybe like in preparation for Ahsoka, what you believe about the strikes, anything. Just like, subscribe, leave us a comment. We're always around. And until next time, may the force